Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about the 2002 fantasy adventure The Scorpion King. And the film is set in some ancient time before the rise of the Egyptian Empire, where a horde of warriors from the east, led by the cruel king Memnon, conquer huge swathes of territory. Few are willing to fight the invaders. Memnon employs a sorcerer who can foresee any attack, making it all but impossible to defeat him. The last three surviving Akkadians, however, are brave and/or greedy enough to try. They accept the commission of Pharaon, leader of the free tribes, to assassinate King Memnon. The mission seems to start well as the trio successfully sneak into Memnon's camp, but in fact it has failed before it even began. Pharaon's son has betrayed his father and the three assassins. Two of the Akkadians are quickly taken out, but the third, Matthias, manages to avoid death and/or capture long enough to find Memnon's sorcerer. Even if the primary mission has failed, killing the sorcerer would critically undermine Memnon's power. Except the sorcerer is in fact a sorceress, a beautiful woman named Cassandra. Matthias cannot bring himself to kill her and is soon captured. Rather than simply killing this would-be assassin, however, Memnon decides to bury Matthias up to his neck in the desert and leave him to be devoured by fire ants. As you can probably guess, Memnon will come to regret not simply having Matthias killed out of hand. The last Akkadian is saved from his apparently certain death and promptly dedicates himself to destroying the wicked king. He manages to find several allies in this quest, such as the alchemist Philos and the warlord Balthazar. Perhaps the most crucial ally is none other than Cassandra herself. Although Memnon has made great use of her prophetic visions, Cassandra bears Memnon no love or loyalty. She's simply been waiting for the last best hope to defeat him. And perhaps Matthias is that hope, though Cassandra's vision suggests that even he is destined to fail. Now, towards the end of the 2001 movie The Mummy Returns, the heroes of that film found themselves facing off with a fearsome centaur-like beast that had a human torso and head, but claws, stinger, and multi-legged body of a massive scorpion. This was the Scorpion King, an ancient warlord summoned back from the dead by the movie's main villains. Now, despite this being the worst visual effects sequence of the film, widely criticised for having awkward facial features and animation, Universal Pictures believed that the character itself was popular, and that the man who had portrayed it, WWE wrestler Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, had real star potential. I wonder whatever happened to that guy. They invested $60 million into rapidly producing a Scorpion King spin-off movie, serving as an origin story for the character. The budget included $5.5 million for Johnson himself, which was, and as at the time of recording still is, the highest salary ever paid for a debut starring role. The film enjoyed a major international release, and though critical reviews were decidedly mixed, it enjoyed moderate commercial success. The worldwide box office was roughly 3 times the production budget, which is alright. The film has since then had no fewer than 4 direct-to-home media sequels. In 2020, a reboot was announced to be in development, with Dwayne Johnson taking a production role in the project. There's been no further news on that film since, however. So, is the original Scorpion King worth watching? Well, it's certainly not a flawless film, but I think it's a fun romp overall. So let's talk about its features in a bit more detail, starting with what is likely the biggest weakness. So when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson first made clear his intention to move into acting, his ambitions met with considerable skepticism. The track record of professional wrestlers who tried to move to Hollywood was not one to encourage much faith. John Carpenter's They Live, starring Rowdy Roddy Piper, had been a minor success and subsequent cult favourite, but it was very much the exception to the rule. Even the most famous professional wrestler in history, Hulk Hogan, had failed in his repeated efforts to establish a big or small screen presence outside of professional wrestling. His most successful role was a brief appearance in Rocky III. None of his starring roles in movies appear to have won either positive reviews or positive financial outcomes. Now, I was certainly among the Rock skeptics, and while time would ultimately prove that Dwayne Johnson had a better grasp of his own abilities than I and the other doubters did, this movie didn't do much to show that. Yes, The Rock had the right physique for action roles, and his performance showed some of the charisma that had made him one of the biggest wrestling stars of the late 90s, but his lack of more traditional acting experience does show. He lacks the comfortable assurance that imbues his later performances, and is sometimes a bit stiff and awkward during this film. So although the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns was, in multiple senses of the word, a CGI horror, The Rock's character in this film is entirely human, and despite the occasional fantastical elements, that human focus applies across the entire movie. The so-called magician Philos has actually simply developed some early forms of explosive compound. Cassandra's sorceress gifts are simply visions, and all of Matthias' enemies are human. I suspect that this aspect of the movie might well have been founded in a production efficiency decision rather than an artistic one. Adding lots of CGI and other such post-production elements would have meant a later release date. By keeping things to a more traditional, practical, human scale of effects, Universal were able to get this movie into theatres less than 12 months after The Mummy Returns, thereby capitalising on the platform provided by that film. Whatever the motives behind the decision, though, I think it was the right choice. Keeping things at a human scale serves to keep them relatable. Memnon is driven by a very human lust for power, Matthias by an equally human desire for revenge. Their conflict is easy for an audience to follow, and it doesn't require big dumps of contextual information about ancient magics and curses and other such lore. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like ancient magics and curses and other such lore, but an action-focused film like this is probably not the right place for them. Now, keeping things at a human scale probably also improved the film's longevity. It's an unavoidable fact that even the best 20-year-old CGI looks awkward and unconvincing to modern eyes. Scorpion King doesn't suffer from this effect, and it remains a fun action spectacle even today. So I appreciate it for that. I also appreciate it for something that the filmmakers would probably not choose to openly admit. This is a movie that owes a significant debt to another entertainment icon, Conan. 2011's Conan the Barbarian is a pretty dreadful film, which is disappointing. Not only that, though, it's perplexing because 9 years earlier, The Scorpion King had provided us with the best Conan film this side of 1982. I mean, heck, depending on how fond you are of the Schwarzenegger movie, you might even say that this is the best Conan film ever. How did they get it so wrong 9 years later? Who knows? Because you've got to see, while the Scorpion King's protagonist might be called Matthias, the parallels with Robert E. Howart's famous character are kind of obvious. He's a barbarian who is scorned by men of civilization for his lack of sophistication. He has a personal code of honor that is stronger and better formed than those who consider themselves his social betters. He's a mighty warrior, not to mention a thief, assassin, and a reaver, but despite that, he is not a cruel man. He protects those who oppress and avoids harming non-combatants. Plus, let's not forget that he is destined to overthrow a terrible tyrant and become a king himself. All you need to make this a Conan film is to change his name, make his race Cimmerian rather than Akkadian, and tweak his weapon choices. Conan could use a bow, but he's deadly with pretty much any weapon, or even barehanded. So, there's a slight difference there, but not a lot. The similarities go down further. We get very similar defeated and left to die in a torturous manner motifs in both stories. Really the only difference being that instead of being buried, Conan was crucified on a tree. Also the theme of fate versus personal agency, in which Cassandra foresees defeat and Matthias rejects it, I will make my own destiny, strongly echoes Howard's work. Conan does not believe in fate, instead viewing life as a series of challenges to overcome, and that a person's destiny is in their own hands. So yeah, if you're jonesing for a Conan movie, this should scratch that itch. Failing that, if you're interested in a fast-paced, action-packed adventure story with a charismatic, if slightly wooden lead, then you should give The Scorpion King a try. Next time, another fantasy action movie that features the concept of destiny, the 1998 Hong Kong Wuxia offering The Storm Riders. But that is next time. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you'd enjoyed it, and if you've seen The Scorpion King, let me know what you thought of it.